She didn't fall in love with the expensive gift, or the well-planned dinner, or the rehearsed phrase. And the cruelest part? She may not even know how to explain why she suddenly felt something. Because contrary to popular advice, women don't give in to logic. They surrender to the invisible, to what touches them before they even realize they've been touched. The average man believes that love is won by the sum of good intentions, but the truth is more brutal. She connects with what makes her feel, not with what tries to convince her. And the worst part? Often, the more you try to convince her, the less she feels. It's a perverse paradox. And yet, that's how it works. Society has trained men to believe that effort equals results. You work, you achieve. You demonstrate, you receive. But when it comes to female emotion, this math falls apart. The philosopher Ortega Gasset said that love is not born of desire, but of surrender to fascination. And fascination, my friend, cannot be explained, it can be felt. Women do not fall in love with speeches. They surrender to atmospheres. What captivates is not the well-placed phrase, but the well-sustained silence. It is not the perfect plan, but the presence that soothes even without words. In this video, you will not find tricks. You will find psychological realities. And if you are ready to abandon the illusion of direct effort, by the end of this journey, you will understand why some women never forget certain men, even when they try. Now breathe, because what you thought you knew is about to crumble. Have you ever stopped to think why the men most obsessed with pleasing are, invariably, the ones who suffer the most in silence? They are the ones who send flowers on their birthdays, good morning messages every day, carefully planned invitations, and yet, they are ignored, swapped, discarded. Meanwhile, that guy who barely responds to messages, who never insists, who even seems disinterested, is the only one she can't stop thinking about. Does that revolt you? Great, because this is where we start to break the illusion. The mistake is in believing that women fall in love with male perfection. They don't want a resume of virtues. They want a man who provokes emotions. And emotion by nature needs tension, not predictability. Nietzsche already said, "What is done for love is beyond good and evil." And that is precisely why trying to be the good guy, the one who always says yes, who never causes discomfort, who is always validating everything she does, is an emotional death sentence. She needs to feel. She needs to oscillate. She needs to experience the emotional journey. And if all you provide is comfort, you become a couch potato. I don't want you. Imagine a movie without conflict. A romance where everything works out from beginning to end. You would turn off halfway through. Because our mind needs narrative, it needs tension, relief, and upheaval. And love, in order to happen, needs to follow this same structure. It is not a straight line. It is an emotional cycle where mystery, what is unsaid, what cannot be predicted, are the fuel for attachment. And that is why men who are always trying to prove their worth, in practice, only reveal that they doubt themselves. And doubt, pay attention to this, is contagious. When you doubt your own worth, she feels it. And when she feels it, she pulls away. The curious thing is that these same men, when they pull away, usually hear the phrase, "You are an incredible person, but..." And the but carries all the weight of rejection that she cannot justify rationally. Because in fact you were good, attentive, polite, loving. But deep down, she did not feel what she needed to feel. And it is not her fault. It is the code of emotional biology acting without asking permission. Robert Greene explains this brilliantly when he says that seduction is not a product of beauty or kindness, but of the ability to provoke fascination. Fascination is synonymous with unpredictability, with continuous emotional stimulation. And how do you generate this? By not being obvious, by not being completely available, by not being predictably perfect. A woman does not fall in love with what is handed to her on a silver platter. She falls in love with what she needs to decipher, with what oscillates between the visible and the veiled, with what awakens her mind, not just pleases her ego. And therein lies the cruelest contradiction. The more you try to show that you deserve to be loved, the further you distance yourself from the emotional experience that generates love. Excessive effort communicates need. Need communicates need. And need turns off the instinct for connection. That's why the path to conquest begins with deconstructing your desire to convince. It's not about convincing her. It's about silently leading her to the experience that makes her convince herself. A true seducer doesn't beg for attention. He cultivates presence. He doesn't seek approval, he conveys conviction. And here comes a maxim that you need to remember. When a man doesn't need a woman to feel like a man, she begins to see in him someone with whom she can become a woman. It's the absence of dependence that creates space for desire. Because desire isn't born of need, it's born of free choice. And no one chooses what they feel they're obligated to accept. That's why the guy who tries too hard always seems forced. Because he forces the connection, he speeds up the process. He gives everything before she has time to desire it. And in the end, he himself destroys the mystery that could save him. Love, when it is genuine, means the absence of guarantees. And it is exactly in this space, where there is no security, but there is intensity, that she begins to fall. Silently, inexplicably, irreversibly. And when you understand this, you realize that the game is not won by insistence. It is won by the invisible magnetism of someone who knows how to be there without needing to be. Because it is at the moment when you stop trying to win her over that she begins, finally, to wonder why you are so difficult to forget. There is a force that you cannot see, but that drags everything around it. A force that does not need to announce its arrival nor prove its worth. It simply exists, and because it exists, it impacts. This force has a name, emotional gravity. And the man who dominates it does not need words. He does not conquer through persuasion. He attracts through energy. You see, most men were educated to act. Do this, say that, prove that you are different. But the man who truly stands out is not tied to effort. He is anchored in presence. He understood what ancient leaders, generals, and masters of war knew. Silent power is the hardest to resist. Because it gives no signals, no explanations. It simply imposes itself. When a woman approaches a man who possesses emotional gravity, something inside her organizes itself, even when everything else is in chaos. He does not need to correct her emotions, offer solutions, or make romantic declarations. He simply stands, firm, unwavering, and in that firmness, she surrenders. Because suddenly she no longer needs to pretend to be stable. She can sway, she can fall apart a little. Because he will stay there, just the same, without trying to fix her, without losing his axis. This is where the magic happens. The ordinary man tries to solve the problem. The magnetic man holds the space. One breathes with her. The other tries to win her over with arguments. One listens to her without anxiety. The other is desperate for validation. One understands that silence is also communication. The other needs to fill every second with words so as not to sink into his own insecurity. This is not emotional absence. This is mature emotional presence. And this difference changes everything. Because while the whole world demands self-control from her, the man with emotional gravity offers the opposite, a space where she does not need to control anything. She does not fall in love because you respond quickly. She falls in love because your presence responds to what she cannot verbalize. And here comes a brutal truth. The man who loses his balance in the face of drama, distance, or feminine silence communicates that his center is in her. And when she realizes this, the attraction dies. Because no one feels safe with someone who depends on their instability to maintain control. The truly attractive man is the one who protects his energy like a king protects his kingdom, firmly but without aggression. He doesn't offer unlimited access, he selects. And because of this, he becomes valuable. She feels it, even if she can't explain it, even if she fights against it. The emotional security you convey when you don't react to the test, when you don't despair at the change in tone, when you don't lose your cool in the face of chaos, this screams one thing: you are in control of yourself. And this control is an aphrodisiac. Remember the figure of James Bond? The man who never raises his voice, never loses his composure, even in the face of death. This is the archetype, not because of the danger, but because of the emotional coldness that protects the warmth of his presence. He is desired not because he tries, but because he represents what is rare, internal stability in an emotionally unstable world. This archetype doesn't need to be violent. He doesn't need to impose, he just is. And contrary to what many people think, this is not coldness. This is emotional leadership. When a woman comes into contact with this type of energy, her own defenses are disarmed. Because for the first time, she doesn't feel like she needs to control everything. She doesn't feel like she's going to be judged. And this emotional freedom creates dependence. A subtle, silent, but profound addiction. Robert Greene says that seduction is offering pleasure where others demand it. And this is exactly what an emotionally centered man does. He doesn't demand that she change. He doesn't try to mold her. He simply creates an emotional field where she chooses to reveal herself. And when a woman reveals herself safely, she surrenders without realizing it. This is the strength of the invisible magnet effect. You don't touch her, but she is pulled. You don't hold her, but she doesn't want to leave. Because the greatest mystery is not that you are inaccessible. It is that you are deeply emotionally accessible without ever being emotionally needy. And that, my friend, is so rare. That she will struggle to understand why she keeps thinking about you, even days after your last conversation. And if you got this far thinking that this was the climax of the journey, get ready. Because in the next chapter, we will cross the final frontier, where silent passion turns into irreversible emotional attachment. And all this without you ever having to ask for love. She won't forget you because you did something remarkable. She'll forget you when she feels that you need her to remember you, because true forgetfulness is not born of absence. It is born of excess. Of excess, availability, predictability, effort. Now, the man she can never erase from her mind is the one who didn't try to make himself unforgettable. He just lived in a way that she could never ignore. Imagine a train passing by. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't honk, but it has direction, strength, rhythm. It keeps going. And without realizing it, you look, observe, follow it with your eyes and ask yourself, where is he going? This is how a man in motion acts on a woman's heart. He doesn't explicitly invite her to get on, but his very path awakens in her the desire to be by his side, because it is impossible to ignore someone who has direction. This is the man who lives a magnetic life, not because he flaunts his achievements, but because he cultivates consistency. He doesn't shout who he is, he lives who he is. And because of this, everything around him is organized, including female desire. He doesn't say he's growing, he shows every day that he's evolving. And this silent evolution is like a scent trail that lingers in the air, even after he's left the room. She connects to it not by logic, but by instinct, because a woman's deepest desire is not to find a man who completes her. It's to find a man who invites her into a more expansive world, a world she wants to explore, but doesn't yet know how to enter. And contrary to what insecure people believe, she doesn't want to be the center of your life. She wants to feel that your life already has a center, and that there's space for her to orbit. It's in this space that deep emotional attachment is born. When she realizes that you're not waiting for her, but you're not rejecting her either. That you're not chasing her, but you're not disappearing either. That you're constant, but not too available. This creates an emotional tension that holds her back, without you ever having to hold her back. And here comes one of the most subversive concepts of modern seduction: strategic absence. When used wisely, it is not disinterest, it is appreciation. It is understanding that desire only exists where there is air to breathe. Have you ever noticed how the most striking perfumes are not the most intense, but the ones that remain even after the person has left? This is how your emotional presence works. It must remain, even when you withdraw. Scarcity is not manipulation. It is a filter. It is the most powerful way to communicate value without saying a word. Because when you limit access, you amplify importance. When you take care of your own time, your own focus, your own energy, she understands, silently, that she needs to deserve space in your life. And that is when the game changes. Because suddenly, she is no longer deciding whether she likes you. She's trying to figure out how to be worthy of walking by your side. A woman does not fall in love with a man who puts her at the center of everything. She falls in love with someone who already has a center, and who invites her, without needing to walk around it. This is not selfishness. This is emotional maturity, and maturity in today's world is a rare aphrodisiac. And here we return to the point that started this whole journey. The man who understands that it is not what he does for her that holds her back. It is what she feels when she is around him. even without him trying. And what she feels when you live this posture of emotional leadership is freedom, is the only prison she wants. In the end, it all comes down to this. She does not want to be the reason for your transformation. She wants to participate in a transformation that has already begun without her. She wants to feel that by connecting with you, she is entering an expanding universe, and no one abandons a universe that makes it grow. She can even walk away, but forgetting is another story. So stop asking how to make her fall in love, and start living like the man she can't erase from her memory. Because when you live a life so full that she wants to be a part of it, you don't have to earn it. It offers itself. And when that happens, you finally understand what effortless seduction is. It's being the man she finds when she stops looking for anyone else.